Four movies. It's been 4 movies and Bumblebee still doesn't know how to talk? Hello everyone, David here. So apparently after riding the Transformers ride at Universal Studios Hollywood, Michael Bay could not have resisted leaving the franchise alone, so he had to come back and give us another Transformers movie, and being that I'm a Transformers fan, I am kind of obliged to watch it despite my reservations and skepticisms. And in Transformers Age of Extinction, a new threat looms that's threatening Autobots and humankind alike, and of course, Optimus Prime and his fellow Autobots have to come out and fight this threat once again. However, what makes this movie kind of more interesting than the other 3 movies is that it's not just Autobots and Decepticons fight, humans in the middle, Autobots, Decepticons fight. No, here there's a change in sides, a change in factions where some of the humans are actually some of the bad guys because the world has decided to think like a human being and say, hey, we don't want these guys if we're gonna have cities like Chicago be blown to smithereens like it was in at the end of the 3rd movie, so we want these guys gone. And so this threat is kind of sort of tied in with all these other humans, and so therefore we have the Autobots facing their new adversary. And the Autobots also happen to have the help of Cade Yeager, played by Marky Mark, bringing the funk and the vibration in order to help the Autobots. Seriously, Cade Yeager. Now, I am a member of the Transformers Addict Facebook group, and of course, as we drew closer to the release of the movie, there were all these posts telling other people to stop posting spoilers, and then other people posting early reviews of the movie, and people coming in saying, oh my god, it's gotten like a 20-something% on Rotten Tomatoes, and people are saying that it's worse than Revenge of the Fallen. So as we drew closer to the day of the release of the movie, and as soon as I walked into that theater, I'm like, please God, don't let this be Revenge of the Fallen again. Because to this day, I think of Revenge of the Fallen as the worst Transformers movie, with some of the worst things that people can think of when it comes to a Michael Bay film, and I perceive those things to be in that movie. And now, after coming out of Age of Extinction, I can proudly say that Age of Extinction is not as bad as Revenge of the Fallen. In fact, it's not even that bad to begin with. But it's not necessarily good either. First of all, I do have to give the movie credit for trying to do something different. It's not, like I said earlier in the review, it's not just Autobots versus Decepticons, humans in the middle, rinse and repeat like in the first 3 movies. You actually got these bad Transformers that I don't want to get into too much detail, but I can't call them Decepticons, who are in cahoots with humans, who are trying to rid the world of Transformers because obviously they keep destroying shit. And of course, the inclusion of Mark Wahlberg as the new protagonist over Shia LaBeouf, it just has a new somewhat type of feel to the movie that makes it separate from the other 3 movies. So you kind of have to give them A for effort in that sense, but of course, you know, the one thing that's never going to change is Michael Bay. So instead of nitpicking every single thing that Michael Bay continues to put in his movies like he does in this one, that us as audience members continue to hate, I'm just going to compact them all into one singular negative about the movie, which I entitle now as Bayisms. Every time he has a shot of a ridiculously hot girl in skimpy outfit that the movie's trying to sell as a 17-year-old, and to quip another Michael Bay movie, motherfucker, you look 30. Or every time we have an explosion with these little fireworks that fly out that Bay continues to put in there that make no sense whatsoever, or a sidekick goofy character that the movie's trying to sell as funny and yet there's no laughter heard throughout the theater, I'm just gonna count it as a Bayism. And of course, this movie has plenty of them. But to the movie's credit, and the reason why I continue to actually insist that this is not as bad as Revenge of the Fallen, is that they don't ever cross the line of complete and utter stupidity like they did in Revenge of the Fallen, with robot testicles and weed brownies and humping dogs and robots. Fortunately, none of that is here. No racist robots. I said racist. Alright, yeah, we still got some stereotypes in this movie in the form of a Transformer who looks like a samurai, who was kind of cool, but of course we needed to have a scene in there where he's talking about all this feng shui type of Zen type of talk. And then we have segment in the movie where we travel to China, and therefore we have stereotypes there. Random dude in an elevator is experiencing a fight, and what does he do? He pulls out kung fu out of nowhere, because according to Michael Bay, every Asian person in China, every Chinese person in China knows kung fu or karate or whatever the hell it is they study there. So all of those things that you have come to expect from a Michael Bay movie, which are here, I'm just going to point out as Bayisms, and without getting into too much detail about them, I'm just going to say they are there, and sure enough, they are detrimental to the movie. But there's two other things that Bay has done before, but I've never seen them like they were in this movie, as opposed to the first Transformers movies. And one of them was that it was clear to me while watching this movie that Bay rushed this movie to the theater, because he was more than likely still working on Pain and Gain, but he really wanted to do Transformers 4, but then Paramount said, yeah, you didn't want to do it, but okay, we're going to let you do it under the obligation that you get this out by next year, because that's when we want the movie to be released. And therefore, Bay just rushed the production of this movie, and there's certain moments, not only in the script, but also in the editing, where things just happen for no reason. Certain characters go from one place to another without any explanation as to how they got there, and certain things happen in the story where you're like, well, why is that character doing that? Why is that person doing that? There's a character here played by Stanley Tucci who is an obvious parody of Steve Jobs, which is kind of funny considering that people wanted Stanley Tucci to play an older Steve Jobs in what was going to be David Fincher's and Aaron Sorkin's Steve Jobs biopic, which I would have loved to have seen, but unfortunately David Fincher dropped out, and so that thing's kind of in limbo as of right now. But Stanley Tucci would have been a great Steve Jobs, but instead he decides to do a parody of him in this movie, down to the point where they even have a poster in his office where he has a black turtleneck. But his character has this subplot that completely contradicts the main plot of the humans trying to get the Transformers to leave. I mean, what are you doing? And so it just feels like it was completely rushed. And the other main bad thing about this movie is that it is too fucking long. Bay is proud in the fact that this is the longest installment in the Transformers franchise, and it's almost like he's literally trying to make these things longer as they go. And that's not even a joke. If you look at the running time for each Transformers movie, each one is longer than the previous one. And here he really outdid himself, because the running time for this movie is the exact same running time for The Dark Knight Rises, around 2 hours and 45 minutes. And the reason why the running time is so bad is because too much of anything is bad, which is a rule heard around the globe. Alright, too much of anything, even the good stuff, is bad. And so when you have these scenes, which I'll admit had some cool action sequences involving the Autobots, because there were some nice things about the Transformers in this movie than before. First of all, we have the cool nod to Generation 1, with Optimus being that form of truck at the beginning of the movie, but just like I predicted in my figure review for the Evasion mode Optimus Prime, it was only in that mode in the movie for about, actually a little longer than I predicted. I predicted around 15 minutes. He was like that for about 20-25 before he finally scanned a much more obvious truck. Optimus continues to say, "We are in hiding," yet at the end of his transformation, he has to put an Autobot symbol on his hood. Why are you doing that? But this new band of Autobots that he has following him are actually pretty cool. You got Hound, you got Drift, who is the Asian stereotype, but he still has some cool stuff to do, and you got Crosshairs. And I like these guys better than Ratchet and Ironhide and Jazz in the first movie. I don't know what it is about these guys, but the three of them have these scenes where they're working together, and I'm like, I can see something out of these guys, and I wouldn't mind seeing them in future installments. Oh yeah, and Bumblebee is here. Why? Because he's a popular character, kids love him, and so he has to be in this movie. Are we gonna explain that he completely abandoned Sam Witwicky after the third movie? No, we're just gonna put him in this movie. And Bumblebee is Bumblebee, just like Optimus Prime is Optimus Prime. And when I say Optimus Prime, I'm talking about the Michael Bay version, who loves to kill. He is in... I don't know I don't know if maybe I took more notice of it in this movie than in the first three movies, but Optimus is a bit of a dick in this movie. He literally says, "I swear I would never kill humans, but when I find that son of a bitch, I'm gonna kill him." He doesn't say those exact words, but I'm like, this is completely the opposite of what Optimus Prime was back in the 80s cartoon. But like I said, the Autobots did have their moments where they shined, especially this sequence throughout the city of Hong Kong where Crosshairs is just shooting left and right, and Hound is doing his thing, and Drift is doing his. And I actually did feel a little kiddish watching these guys blow stuff up, because even though it did look like a cartoon, I don't know, I was actually starting to become a little bit engaged, because not only did I like the persona of some of these characters, and later on I was surprised to learn that we actually had some voice actors, some known voice actors behind these characters, such as Ken Watanabe or John Goodman or John DiMaggio, I think that was his last name. But they had some interesting stuff, and even some of the villains in this movie, not only in terms of Transformers, but also in the humans. You got Kelsey Grammer, and once again, Michael Bay is able to rope in some talent. You know, Transformers 1 had John Voight. I can't remember who Transformers 2 had. I'm trying to remember, who does Transformers 2 have? I cannot remember, but Transformers 3 had John Malkovich and Francis McDormand, and this movie has Kelsey Grammer, and the acting is exactly what you expect out of a Michael Bay movie. You know, you got Marky Mark in there doing Mark Wahlberg like he always does in every movie, always talking like this, always talking like everything's gonna be okay, and asking and talking like everything's a question, and trying to figure out what's going on. And, oh my God, say hello to your mother for me. His daughter is, you can tell this is her first acting gig, and her boyfriend who tags along. The movie's trying to tell us that he's Irish, but his accent just kept bouncing between American and Irish, and I don't even know what ethnicity the actor really is, and quite frankly, I don't care. And Stanley Tucci, I've always liked Stanley Tucci, but you can tell in this movie that he wanted to have fun and just ham it up, and instead he came off as both cheesy in a good way, and then cheesy in a bad way, where he started to become a little obnoxious. But out of all the human actors, Kelsey Grammer was the one who felt like he was in a serious movie, and he didn't come as an overactor. He actually came as someone who's subliminally evil, that I'm like, man, I actually find this guy quite much more fascinating than our human protagonist, especially when you consider that his ideology kind of makes sense. Why do we want Transformers here if they're going to continue to tear shit up? But on the evil Transformers side, you got Lockdown, and Lockdown is awesome. He is the Boba Fett of these movies. And earlier this year, we got the Winter Soldier. So this type of character who's not a bad guy, but he's not a good guy, he's simply just working for the bad guys because they got something on him, or they're paying him, or something like that. I'm starting to dig these kind of characters, and I'm actually pretty glad that they went ahead and incorporated a type of character like that in this new Transformers movie to, like I said, give it that fresh breath of air. They even threw in a little bit of mystery in there with this character concerning who exactly is it that he's working for, who exactly wants who wants Optimus Prime, to the point where they hired this badass mofo Lockdown to go hunt him. It's probably the only thing that I actually am looking forward to seeing in Transformers 5. And not the other subplot that is also left hanging leading up to the next installment, which feels kind of recycled from the first three movies. And I really do mean the word recycle as literal as possible. But going back to my point about this movie dragging on too long and making good things not good anymore, is that despite all of these different elements having awesome scenes, especially the Transformers where they're just blowing stuff up and all these cool action sequences, they drag on for way too long, to the point where the Dinobots finally show up at the end, who got venomized into this movie, and I'll let you know what that means based on that term, venomized. It almost doesn't even matter, because I've seen so much CG and explosions that it's not even that exciting anymore. Here's the thing, I didn't come out of this movie feeling insulted like I did with the Rise of the Fallen, with all those things that we saw, and we're like, why did you shoot this? Why did you waste film on this? And don't get me wrong, there's certain scenes in this movie that, like I said, could have been cropped out. I'm watching this scene and I'm like, why are we seeing this? This could have been left on the cutting room floor, and we would have had a much more condensed movie that didn't feel too long and didn't just fry our brains with all the explosion and CG that is just seeping all over the screen. But due to what I believe was the contractual obligation to get this movie done in time, Michael Bay didn't have time to edit. He didn't have time to crop up some of these shots so that the movie would be shorter, and edit these other scenes so that we can finally get a sense of an explanation as to why this character ended up here. And Michael Bay is Michael Bay. That will never change. But what keeps this movie from being officially bad is that they tried new things and tried to have this movie separate itself from the original trilogy and therefore create a new trilogy, which I believe the producers are intending on doing. But at least they put some things in there that were better in the previous Transformer movies, and I don't know, I just didn't come out of this movie feeling like it was a bad movie, but because it had enough detrimental things in it, I never really thought that it was good. So what does that leave us with? A movie that I perceive to be as okay. So for that, I give Transformers Age of Extinction a 6 out of 10. If you're a Transformers fan, definitely see it, because there's enough nuggets there to find kind of interesting, considering that you are a Transformers fan. But if you're not, then I guess the people that will enjoy this movie the most are the people that don't think about movies too much. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. I'm cursed with this very analytical mind, and trust me, I hate myself sometimes for it. I wish I can enjoy this movie much more, but in the end, I ended up saying to myself something that I've already said a number of times. The first Transformers movie is so far the funnest. But what did you guys think of Transformers Age of Extinction? If you did see it, let me know. And what do you guys want to see in a Transformers 5? A new type of Transformer, a new type of human character, or a whole new director? Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you guys next time.